Selamat pagi semuanya. Tadi udah ada pengumuman terbaru nih. Nih. Udah dibaca semua? Jadi sebelum kuliah berakhir, kalian boleh membuat pertanyaan. Pas kuliah berakhir ini, nanti ditentukan. Tapi demokrasi. Jadi saya membuat elemen-elemennya dan kemudian kalian kita sepakati empat yang akan mendapatkan tadi voucher buat beli kolak ya buka puasa nanti sore gitu. Sudah dibaca semua nih? Yang baru masuk sudah membaca? Kelihatan nggak ya? Halo?
Sudah, Bu.
Kelihatan, Bu.
Kayak udah siap-siap ya, semangat ya. Oke. Sebentar. Saya mau stop anunya dulu, saya mau coba uji sharingnya. Sharingnya udah pakai suara belum ya? Oke, pagi ini kita akan mendiskusikan tentang Le Corbusier. Jadi Le Corbusier itu bapak dari penggerak tentang arsitektur modern yang secara kita mengenal minimalis dan sebagainya. Tapi tidak seperti itu. Jadi misalnya kayak gini, orang Jawa itu terkenal dengan suaranya yang halus, tapi kan nggak seperti itu juga gitu kan. Ada banyak ciri-ciri lain. Nah, begitu juga dengan arsitektur modern. Yang pertama kali dikenal adalah bentuknya yang minimalis, tapi nggak sesederhana itu karena ada banyak elemen-elemen lain yang bisa dikembangkan menjadi sebuah keindahan. Penggeraknya atau tokoh yang memberikan dasar-dasar pemikiran tentang itu adalah salah satunya Le Corbusier. Ini share-nya tak kasih sound supaya oke ya. Lah kok nggak muncul dia? Oke, aja deh. Bantuin dong. Bisa muncul ya? Oke, nggak tak capture lagi. Oke, jadi Le Corbusier ini, mari kita mengenal lebih detail tentang Le Corbusier. Sebagian besar berupa video. Kenapa? Karena biar nggak berat, gitu ya. Yang diingat, kok nggak masuk ini foto-fotonya? Oke, ini kayaknya ada beberapa yang baru ya, 20. Ini buat yang baru masuk. Ini ada pengumuman ini ya. Yang baru masuk. Yang baru masuk baca dulu pengumuman ini supaya kita semua bisa bersiap-siap untuk menggali sebuah informasi baru yang kita bisa pertanyakan dari informasi yang sudah ada selama ini di buku, di internet, di YouTube, di Google. Itu sudah ada informasinya. Mari kita mencoba menggali rasa ingin tahu kita untuk menanyakan yang belum ada gitu supaya bisa beli kolak yang lebih banyak daripada biasanya. Karena saya yakin kamu juga di rumah pasti sudah disiapin ya. Oke. Le Corbusier itu adalah arsitek Swiss yang terkenal dengan desain inovasi dan fungsional. Kemarin kita sudah bicara bahwa arsitektur modern itu harus fungsional gitu ya, efisien, fungsinya dulu berfungsi secara efisien gitu ya. Efisien itu ya secukupnya, fungsinya jangan berlebihan karena nanti tentu saja menjadi pembengkakan anggaran dan pembengkakan sumber daya. Dia juga memperkenalkan prinsip-prinsip ini. Aku harus pakai annotate biar bisa menjadi spotlight. Nah ini, aku pakai ini ya. Oh, spotlight aja. Jadi beberapa karyanya yang terkenal antara lain Villa Savoy, United Habitation, dan Kapel Notre Dame. Ini yang paling terkenal. Tapi nanti yang kita akan bahas adalah Villa Savoy karena tadi dasar-dasar prinsip arsitektur modernnya sangat sangat apa ya, sangat sangat fungsional dan itu masih bisa, bukan masih bisa, kalau kalian cerdik itu masih sangat-sangat mempesona kalau diterapkan di dalam bangunan-bangunan tugas akhir kalian nanti, unit the habitation dan kapel Notre Dame. Dia Le Corbusier itu juga punya pengaruh besar dalam perencanaan kota gitu kan, sebagai penulis-penulis itu Pak. Suara saya cukup jelas ya, bisa didengar? Halo?
Jelas, Bu.
Oke, oke. Nah, ini Le Corbusier, seorang arsitek, dia juga perencana kota, seniman dan penulis Swiss, dianggap pengaruh dan ini pelopor arsitektur modern, desainnya yang inovatif dan fungsional. Ini Villa Savoy. Oh, Susmita baru datang nih. Halo Susmita. Susmita. Susmita bisa dengar? Halo. Susmita, kamu bisa dengar? Halo. Gitu apa, Jay? Susmita bisa dengar suara saya?
Bisa, Bu.
Ini ada ini loh, ada tawaran nih. Daripada yang terlambat bisa melihat ini tawaran. Ada cuan voucher kali lupa, ada cuan voucher. Cuan virtual voucher. Oke. Karena itu sekarang mari kita mau agak kenceng nih menggerakkan pemahaman kita supaya kita bisa mengolah gitu ya data-data yang sudah ada dari internet, yang ada dari YouTube, sudah ada dari Google. Kita bahas, kita diskusikan, kemudian kita mencoba menarik hal baru, menarik kesimpulan baru, menarik rasa ingin tahu baru demi demi sebuah voucher. Enggak lah ya, demi diri kalian sendiri. Dan kemudian tentu saja 4 orang yang paling nanti kita nilai bersama, yang paling keren, pertanyaannya paling berdampak terhadap tadi diskusi ini, boleh boleh nambah itunya, boleh nambah kolaknya karena ada vouchernya. Oke, sekarang kembali lagi ke perkuliahannya. Jadi kenapa hari ini kok kita mau membahas Le Corbusier gitu ya? Karena tadi Le Corbusier itu adalah benar-benar eh, penggerak atau pendiri arsitektur modern dengan desainnya yang inovatif dan fungsional, kontribusinya dalam memperkenalkan prinsip-prinsip desain modern. Bukan hati-hati ya, ini layak untuk dicatat dalam setiap perancangan PA-mu nanti, bahkan sampai ujian sarjanamu nanti. Karena Le Corbusier menerapkan 5 prinsip ini eh, dengan cara yang unik, menarik, sederhana, tapi sangat fungsional. Beberapa karya Le Corbusier yang terkenal. Nah, nanti kita akan bahas paling banyak. Itu contoh 5 prinsipnya ada di Villa Savoy di Poissy, Prancis. Ini ada lagi unit The Habitation Marseille. Itu apartemen gitu ya. Kemudian kapal Notre Dame. Kemudian perencanaan kota. Dia merencana juga. Nah, kemudian, ini mari kita menonton videonya Le Corbusier tentang ada beberapa. Jadi video itu mulai bercerita tentang dirinya, bercerita tentang sketsanya. Sketsanya aja diakui oleh UNESCO sebagai warisan peradaban manusia. Sketsanya, kebayang nggak sih orang nyeketsa gitu, tapi ternyata sketsanya itu sampai puluhan tahun kemudian itu dianggap ini loh yang memberi arah terhadap perkembangan arsitektur modern. Nanti ada beberapa video lagi pemikirannya dan sebagainya. Oke, kita tonton dulu ini. Kenapa tidak bisa main? Oke. Nah, dulu. Kenapa dia tidak bisa play ya? What happened? Oh, enable itunya deh. Sebentar, coba aku mainkan dari sini tadi. Bisa nggak ya? Oh, karena aku tidak sedang mau ini sih. Ini kan lagi menggunakan spotlight, jadi tidak bisa memerintah. Sebentar, annotate-nya buang. Tidak bisa. Sebentar. Oh, ada apakah ini? Oh, oke. Stop dulu. Kita ganti dulu teksnya. Ganti dulu setting bahasanya.
Le Corbusier. Charles Edouard Jeanneret was born on the 6th of October 1887 and died on the 27th of August 1965. Charles Edouard Jeanneret became known as Le Corbusier and rose to international fame as an architect, designer, painter, urban planner, writer, and the most influential pioneer of modern furniture. Without any formal education in architecture, Le Corbusier became a self-taught and accomplished architect, and in 1912 he designed and built a new house for his parents. This house led to further commissions to design and build imposing open-plan houses with his trademark style of maximizing space and natural light. Throughout the First World War, Le Corbusier took a teaching post at his old school in Les Choix de France. He became very interested in the efficiencies of construction using reinforced concrete as a building material. At the end of the war, Le Corbusier moved to Paris and started an architectural practice with his cousin Pierre Jeanneret, a successful partnership that would last 21 years. By 1930, Le Corbusier had established modernist architecture as a dominant European style, and he continued with his unique minimalism style throughout the next 2 decades, with numerous and varied commissions, from social housing to elaborate mansions. Le Corbusier invited Charlotte Perriand to join his studio as a furniture designer with his cousin Pierre Jeanneret. This was the start of a collaboration that would change the world of modern furniture design. Little did they know that their influence on modern designer furniture would still be as strong and popular today. Le Corbusier was inspired by Marcel Breuer and Mies van der Rohe, and proceeded designing and manufacturing furniture using tubular steel. Tubular steel was originally used for bicycles and was perfect for Le Corbusier's vision. A sculptural technique of design incorporating curved steel tubes to define minimalistic style furniture. The first results of the collaboration between Le Corbusier and Perriand were 3 pieces of furniture made with chrome-plated tubular steel frames. The LC4 chaise longue, an adjustable bed built in a shape designed for relaxation. Le Corbusier took the idea that the purest form and absolute function should result in the ultimate level of comfort. The functional awareness of the design is attributed in the stability of the frame, because at any angle of inclination the frame remains stable. The LC3 Grand Comfort is a minimalism style club chair and sofa with a tubular steel frame with unconnected cushions suspended across elasticated strap. The Le Corbusier LC2 are armchairs and sofas with the trademark Le Corbusier steel frame, supporting loose cushions based on elasticated straps. The LC2 represented the new and modern conception of designer furniture. Today, the Le Corbusier LC2, LC3 and LC4 remain as the most iconic designer pieces ever created. However, they were very expensive. Le Corbusier had always intended that his furniture be affordable for everyone to enjoy. This was not the case, as all early production models were very expensive, and decades later, when the license to manufacture was purchased by Cassina, Le Corbusier furniture collections remained extremely expensive and only available to a minority. Le Corbusier was praised and criticised in equal amounts, and he had many rivals, but in reality, none had the same significant effect on the revolution of modern designer furniture or architecture as Le Corbusier. His vision was inflexible, his determination autocratically firm, and his arguments simplistic. His career spanned 5 decades, and he designed buildings in Europe, Japan, India, and North and South America. But for most people, whether they be admirers or critics, the lasting memory of Le Corbusier will be with the LC2 furniture collection. Never in the history of modern designer furniture has there been a piece of furniture that has given so much artistic pleasure as the LC2, or inspired future generations of modern furniture designers to aspire to the pure genius of Le Corbusier.
Nah ini, jadi tadi kita mendengar bahwa kita melihat bahwa Le Corbusier itu tidak hanya mendesain bangunan atau kota, tapi dia juga mendesain interior. Nah, kalian bisa bayangkan bahwa dari klasik itu bangunan interiornya kan terbuat dari bahan kayu gitu kan, dan masih ingat nggak sih bahan model-modelnya yang besar, yang berat, yang menggambarkan ke apa ya, ke tingkat tinggi seni detail dan ornamen yang ada pada masa itu. Jadi Le Corbusier kok bisa-bisanya ikut mendesain interior ya, karena memang interior itu akan mendukung konsep yang seutuhnya, konsepnya yang dia seutuhnya. Kalau yang kelas B kemarin, tapi nanti saya coba kelas B kemarin kita melihat sebuah bangunan yang Casa Batlló itu bagaimana interiornya menyatu dengan konsep keseluruhan. Misalnya kemarin yang kelas B yang hari Sabtu itu, bagaimana sebuah bangunan Casa Batlló itu interiornya adalah bunga musim semi. Nah, kemudian untuk bentuk pintu dan sebagainya itu seperti konsep keseluruhan. That's why kenapa Le Corbusier juga mendesain interior, karena kalau dia tidak ikut mendesain interior, konsep konsep nanti ini, konsep 5 elemen modern ini nggak akan terdukung oleh interior yang tidak ikut dia desain. Oke, sekarang kita kembali lagi. Kenapa ini nggak bisa? Nah, ini kenapa nggak bisa di itu ya? What happened? Okay. Ini ada 4 video. Jadi ini dasar-dasarnya dia cerita tentang sebuah kota kota yang terakhir. Jadi dia bercerita tentang arsitektur modernnya, kemudian dia mengambil intisari dari Roma, kemudian dia membuat sebuah pemikiran bahwa arsitektur itu sebetulnya mesin gitu loh, alat. Mesin itu yang dimaksud alat gitu ya, untuk menciptakan kehidupan di dalamnya gitu kan. Nah, kemudian dia bicara tentang revolusi itu di dalam bidang arsitektur. Ini ada 4 video.
In this video,
Setting.
In this video series, we are going to explore the foundations of modern architecture according to one of the greatest architects. Charles-Édouard Jeanneret, or Le Corbusier, is a Swiss architect that contributed and pioneered modern architecture and city planning. In his book, Towards New Architecture, Le Corbusier describes the deteriorating state of architecture versus the rise of the engineers during the industrial boom of the early 19th century. He goes on to explain that engineers rely on the laws of nature and mathematical forms to build their factories and machineries. The factories built by the engineers at the time are a better form of architecture than the houses and towns designed by the architects. Architecture is heavily influenced by styles and customs, limiting the true role of architecture in the city and society. Styles are sometimes, but not always, pretty and never anything more. However, architecture has higher ends, and it should impress the human instincts. The architect should be able to arouse emotions, leading to a satisfactory condition for the people exploring his architecture. The genius of Le Corbusier was his ability to join his Cubist art philosophies with his mathematical analytical mind. So to solve the issue of the architects, he wrote about the three reminders that architects should come back to: mass, surface, and the plan. First, architecture is a masterful play of masses that we see in light. Le Corbusier argued that the primary forms are the forms that our brains mostly appreciate. Egyptian, Greek, and Roman architecture is based on prisms, cubes, cylinders, pyramids, and spheres. On the other hand, Gothic architecture is made from complex forms. And when a form gets too complex, it will require additional decoration, such as the use of ornaments and foliage, which will downgrade the purity of the mass and the design of the architect. The job of the architect is to preserve the purity of the geometry in his projects. If you are enjoying this video so far, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel. Okay, moving on. The second reminder to architects is the proper use of the mass surfaces. Surfaces envelope the masses and should follow the geometry directing lines. To simplify this idea, let's consider the mass as the architectural structure of the house, the temple, or the factory. The surfaces of that factory are in most cases the doors and the windows. These openings are basically the deconstruction of the pure geometry of the mass and are in rivalry with it. The challenge of the architect is to modulate the surface while preserving the purity of the geometry. You can check out the architectural works of Raphael and Bramante to clearly understand the use of pure geometrical shapes in buildings. The final reminder is the use of the plan. The plan is the generator of architecture and the element that requires the best of the architect's imagination. Also, let us use an example that Le Corbusier described in his book to clearly understand the importance of the plan in modern architecture. If you are in a city where the buildings are made out of pure masses, the grouping of these masses is positioned in a clear rhythm, and the relationship of these masses to the space is in the right proportion. Then your eye will transmit to your brain the sensation of the scenery, and your brain will derive from this sensation a feeling of satisfaction of a higher order. The job of the plan is to coordinate the play of masses in rhythmic fashion, invoking the brains of the people, and this is the real role of architecture. This video only scratched the surface of this book, so make sure to subscribe and hit the bell button to be notified when we release future parts of this series. You can check our previous videos for the ideas of other great minds like Francis Ching and Vitruvius.
Ini yang kedua. Langsung kita loncat yang kedua.
In our previous video, we went through
belum disetting bahasanya.
In our previous video, we went through Le Corbusier's thoughts on modern architecture as laid out in his book, Towards New Architecture. Today we will be looking at Le Corbusier's lessons derived from Rome. In less than 20 pages, Le Corbusier managed to scan through the evolution of Rome as a city from its birth to our present day. We should consider ourselves lucky to have access to the thought process of one of the greatest architects looking into one of the most fascinating cities. Going back to his ideas on rejecting the decorating nature of styles, he naturally rejected the architecture produced by the Renaissance or the Byzantium period. And since Rome architectural scenery fell asleep after the Renaissance, it is now perceived as the current state of the city studied by most students. To him, the study of Rome is tricky and should not be attempted by students or the half-educated. Architecture students should not start their education in Rome, since it will cripple them for life. The bazaar of different architectural styles that this city holds should be investigated by the wise only. During his studies, he managed to uncover hidden gems, and some argue that Rome and these gems did influence his work. They said that his fundamentals on modern architecture are in a way derived from analyzing Rome. Before taking a step backwards to lay out this section of the book the same way Le Corbusier did, please consider hitting the like button and subscribe to our channel. The early Roman people were brutal, with an enormous desire to dominate. And since the city lacked any town planning, the early Roman city walls were too crowded. The houses were piled up to 10 stories high, and the city was in general all huddled together. After that period came the conquering of Greece, and it brought with it the Greek appreciation of simple forms and mathematical harmony. Briefly after that, some beautiful structures started to rise outside the city where they had more space to work with. One of these structures are Hadrian's Villas. Le Corbusier considered it as the first Western attempt for planning on a grand scale. Throughout the villas, the Romans showed their understanding for the architecture fundamentals of arrangement. Unfortunately, arrangement is one of many foundations for architecture and is not enough to create emotional, moving architecture, so he did not consider the villas a success from an architecture standpoint. Soon afterwards, the Roman engineers started inventing new methods of constructions, and with it did impressive things. By combining their intact operations, clear aim, and classifications, they built immense cupolas held by Roman cement, and they proved that they are great builders. The Roman mindset was changing, their legislation and strategies. And since architecture is a byproduct of these factors, new impressive buildings started to pop up. Buildings with the pure shapes that he surely appreciated. The Pantheon, the Colosseum, the Aqueduct, the Basilica of Constantine, and the Baths of Caracalla. The architecture of the Roman Empire was different from ancient Rome. It was clear and focused, with a single idea and without verbosity. One can argue that we owe the Roman creativity the creation of brick, cement, and travertine. Fast forward some centuries later, Rome fell under the Byzantium Empire, and back into the horror of styles, gilded palaces, and ornamented architecture. But at that period, the Greek managed to offer Rome another gift of architecture, the Church of Saint Marie in Cosmedine. He saw in this church all what we aspired for as a modern architect, from its pure geometry, simple use of materials, and its sense of relationship. You can sense in his writings that Le Corbusier was somehow enjoying the mocking aspect of this beautiful church, standing proud and simple in the city of the noble Romans with their ornamented palaces. Through the Renaissance and its horrors for architecture, as he called it, Le Corbusier admired the work of Michelangelo and considered him a man that can be found once every 1,000 years. For him, Michelangelo overshadowed the classical epoch. After his passing, Rome fell asleep for the last time and hasn't woken up since. Tell us in the comments below what architect, book, or architecture idea you would like us to cover, and check our previous videos.
Beneran ini kalau baca Indonesianya pusing emang.
Le Corbusier had a simple definition for revolutions. When the new mindset and tools are set against the past, we will have a revolution. During the 19th and 20th century revolutions, by this definition, were all over the place. Le Corbusier was in a constant quest to eradicate the architecture of the past. His mission was to replace the architecture of styles with the new social order that the industrial advancements had brought. Before we dig deeper into the ideas he presented in this section of his book, it is important to keep in mind that he was a man that loved order and was encircled with controversy. If you want to learn more about this, you can look up his plans to destroy El Raval in Barcelona, or his master plan for the city of Addis Ababa after it fell in the hands of the fascists. Tell us what you think in the comments below, and please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. With that mentioned, let's move on. The industrial progress was blazingly fast at that period. Productive workspaces in the factories, the offices, and the banks brought a new sense of efficiency and quality to the life of the workers. He claimed that societies from 4,000 years ago up until the 18th century had a simple, stable structure for most of the time. The man of the past was in control of the tools that automatically met the needs of the society. And because of that, the evolution of societies was slow. He rose with the sun, slept at dusk, worked in a small booth with his family around him. Like snails in a home made exactly to his measure, there was nothing to induce him to modify the state of things. Work was organized under the family unit. The man of today, on the other hand, is living in a world of mass production, cars, and airplanes. Each person is tied to his machine. The spirit of the working family unit no longer exists. For years, the worker will do repetitive small tasks under the supervision of a strange foreman. In order to feel pride, workers need to understand the collective value of their work, since they don't see the finished product as it moves in assembly lines. On the other side of the coin, his home, town, and cities, on the other hand, are still following the past. The houses lack good lighting, water, and air quality. Buildings are stacked together in mid-century rows. Man is using machines to create pure work of engineering to advance the quality of life, while the machine he lives in is in need of replacement. Le Corbusier believed that the new advancements changed the population mindset. Mass production created mass desires. Desire for luxury and the relaxation of their minds and bodies after long working hours during the day. And since the workers are not able to fulfill their desires while living in the houses of the past, they will not in turn pursue their instinct to form families. Due to that, the family will be killed, and that in turn will destroy the society. So, if legislators do not allow the city to move into the modern era, surely there will be a revolution, and it is only avoided with architecture. If you haven't watched our previous videos,
Ya,
we highly encourage you to
agak
do that
susah
now. Our package is
dimengerti.
full of architectural book summaries and philosophies to help you expand your knowledge. Thank you.
Ini agak susah dimengerti karena ini masih dalam bentuk pemikiran dia ya. Nah, ini yang berikutnya adalah ini. Dan tutup dulu semuanya. Kenapa ini nggak bisa di full ya? Nah, ini mulai lebih dikristalkan gitu ya. Jadi dari segala pemikirannya tadi yang 4 video. Nah, ini mulai dikristalkan menjadi 5 prinsip. Oh, ini kudunya nomor ini. Pilotis itu adalah kolom-kolom yang menyangga. Nanti ada videonya. Kamu bisa membayangkan lebih detail kalau diaplikasikan dalam sebuah desain. Tapi ini 5 elemen ini saya sekalian tak capture buat bukti pengajaran. Oke. 5 prinsip dasar dari arsitektur yang 5 prinsip modern arsitektur yang dicanangkan oleh Le Corbusier. Sekali lagi ya, nanti kita akan melihat langsung aplikasinya dalam desain. Tapi pertama itu pilotis. Pilotis itu kolom-kolom yang menjaga bangunan di atas tanah. Nah, prinsip ini memungkinkan bangunan didirikan di atas tanah yang tidak rata atau bahkan di atas air. Karena apa? Karena ada unsur pilotis. Ini sangat berperan saat kalian nanti mendesain tugas akhir ya. Nah, pilotis ini memungkinkan penempatan ruang terbuka di bawah bangunan. Jadi menurut Le Corbusier kalau kalian menggunakan prinsip yang pilotis itu lebih fleksibel, bagian bawahnya bisa digunakan secara untuk pergerakan. Yang sekarang itu namanya basement gitu kan. Ada dasar itu. Kemudian ribbon windows, jendela-jendela panjang membentang sepanjang sisi bangunan. Kenapa? Karena yang menyangga kekuatan dari atap itu adalah kolom-kolom pilotis tadi, sehingga dindingnya bisa lepas dari kolom. Nah, kalau dindingnya lepas, dindingnya tidak menanggung beban dari atap, dindingnya bisa dibuka semua menjadi ribbon windows. Jadi jendelanya tuh jadi kayak pita. Ribbon itu kan pita. Jadi bisa membentuk pita gitu. Kemudian ada rooftop garden, taman di atas bangunan itu menggantikan lahan atau tanah ruang terbuka yang digunakan untuk bangunanmu. Untuk ruang hijau dapat membantu mengurangi suhu di dalam bangunan. Kemudian open floor plan, dinding-dinding membatasi karena beban konstruksi apa namanya beban konstruksi gaya yang itu ditanggung oleh kolom yang tadi sudah pilotis tadi ya. Kemudian dinding-dindingnya bisa bebas dan bisa terbuka, bisa pakai dinding lebih terbuka gitu ya desainnya. Kemudian facade libre menghilangkan pemisah antara struktur bangunan dan dinding. Ini prinsip dasar Le Corbusier. Bagaimana kalau diterapkan di dalam bangunan? Mari kita lihat ada 2 video. Yang satu video bicara tentang zoning, yang satu video bicara tentang nggak bisa dimainkan ya, harus pakai yang ini. Harus pakai satu video bicara tentang ini zoning, bagaimana harus menempatkan zoning. Ini konsep. Jadi konsep zoning itu mulai ada kan di arsitektur modern ya. Jadi pada sebuah site yang dibangun, kemudian dikelompokkan menurut zoning. Kenapa menurut zoning? Karena setiap kelompok yang sesuai zoning yang sama itu membutuhkan persyaratan-persyaratan ruang yang sama. Jadi kalau zoningnya satu ruang sama, itu mudah mengorganisir persyaratan yang dibutuhkan oleh orang-orang ruang-ruang dengan zoning yang sama. Ini ada 2 video nanti. Satu bicara tentang zoning, video yang kedua itu bicara tentang bagaimana menerapkan prinsip 5 prinsip arsitektur modern oleh Corbusier. Kita stop dulu. Oh, oke. Gak ada suaranya memang ini. Jadi kalian bisa fokus melihat gambar. Itu warnanya sesuai dengan zona. Kalau kita sudah tahu kan, zona itu berkaitan dengan siapa yang boleh masuk ke situ kan. Oke. Nah, yang berikutnya nih, ini paling paling penting karena betul-betul dia memberi contoh bagaimana 5 prinsip itu bisa diletakkan di dalam sebuah desain secara sederhana, simple, tapi jadinya bagus banget. Ya, bagus lah karena dapat penghargaan UNESCO. Videonya juga ringkas 2 menit doang. Tanpa suara kita bisa fokus untuk menyaksikan. Oh, tanpa teks tapi pakai suara. Nah, tadi ya, ini nih paling penting nih prinsip tadi dan bagaimana menerapkannya secara mudah ya. Terus, nah itu tadi dua-duanya Villa Savoy ini bisa di full kan nggak? Ini bisa nyetel video tapi nggak bisa di full kan. Jadi kita harus kalau mau nge-full kan harus pindah ke yang offline, versi offline. Jadi ini tadi 2 contoh tadi itu adalah Villa Savoy, salah satu di antara banyak proyek yang tadi kita tonton ya dalam apa tampilan itu. Bangunan ikonik dirancang Le Corbusier tahun 1928. Kita belum merdeka dia sudah bisa bangun Villa Savoy dengan prinsip arsitektur modern. Halo. Bangunan ini terletak di kota Poissy, menjadi contoh arsitektur. Nah, ini didesain sebagai rumah keluarga dengan gaya arsitektur modern, inovatif gitu ya. Contoh arsitektur modern paling terkenal di dunia ya. Tadi kalian sudah melihat ya prinsip-prinsipnya itu begitu, begitu memperhatikan lingkungan, begitu memperhatikan perkembangan tadi, kemudahan sirkulasi untuk kendaraan cepat gitu kan, mobil dan sebagainya. Kemudian ada penghawaan, ada segala macam gitu kan. Nah, ini paling banyak dipelajari di dalam sejarah arsitektur dan juga menjadi simbol dari prinsip desain Le Corbusier yang memprioritaskan fungsi dan kepraktisan, praktis banget tadi nerapkannya gitu ya, jendelanya dibelongin semua serta elemen struktur yang inovatif, memiliki tampilan yang bersih, minimalis dengan wood dominan, kemudian memiliki atap datar yang dirancang menjadi sebuah rooftop. Jadi meskipun atapnya datar, tapi prinsipnya adalah mengganti lahan yang digunakan untuk bangunan itu diganti dengan sebuah ruang terbuka hijau di atas gitu ya. Nah, terus fasad bangunan terdiri dari jendela panjang yang membentang segala macam. Nah, kemudian ini adalah pemikirannya terhadap ini jam berapa ya? Masih ada jamnya. Oke, masih 30 menit. Ini adalah pemikirannya dari semua karyanya. Kalau lewat sini nggak bisa, kita harus pindah lagi menggunakan yang versi online. Kalau yang versi offline nggak bisa kumpul. Oke. Sebentar, ini ada beberapa video. Ini pemikirannya, sketsa, ini kota, tapi kayaknya ini bagus semua, makanya harus mudah-mudahan cukup ya. Yang terakhir ini yang kemarin saya share ke kalian itu loh, yang bagaimana kelas di masa modern menggunakan ini metaverse. Ini kebayang nggak sih mereka mulai merancang bagaimana seolah-olah Le Corbusier ada bersama kita untuk masuk ke ruang metaverse dan mengunjungi karya-karyanya nanti ya. Kita satu demi satu dulu kan. Perlukah digunakan tag? Kayaknya malah pusing deh. Coba ya kita tonton aja lah, nggak usah dipikir baca.
Charles-Édouard Jeanneret, Le Corbusier.
French Swiss architect, considered the most influential architect of the 20th century. Through his works, there is a constant evolution that ranges from white and purist residences to social housing blocks and government buildings. Le Corbusier's architectural work is a sign of an unprecedented exchange of influences, which spread on a worldwide scale
Oh, ini
in
14
connection with the
menit ya.
birth and development of the modern movement.
Tapi ini ringkasan seluruh karya-karyanya. (1922) itu rumahnya sendiri. Punyanya Jeanneret.
This double house belongs to the series of residences made by the architect in Paris during the 1920s. In them, Le Corbusier experimented with the instrumental and conceptual principles that he would develop in parallel throughout the successive prototypes. An articulated composition is generated from the addition of an elongated rectangular volume to another arranged at 90 degrees with respect to the previous one. The L-shaped layout features a combination of curved and straight elevations, determined by the surrounding environment. Part of the complex is raised on pilatus and another sits on the ground. Regulatory paths act as a geometric means to define the position of the windows and give proportion to the plastic composition. A roof garden is enlivened with a variety of species of trees and flowers. By taking advantage of an ideal gallery house program, the architect introduces the concept of an architectural promenade into the interior space, which will allow multiple and surprising perspectives along the way, enhanced by natural lighting from a variety of windows. Some windows are illuminated, others are dimmed. There is an alternation of light and shadow, as well as a tense harmony that results from the connection between the interior and the exterior. The architectural ensemble on the outside is neutral, but with all the surprise contained inside. Le Corbusier defines polychromy by painting some walls blue and those in full light red, among other colors. The white allows to affirm the exact presence of the external volume, and the polychromy separates the planes and diminishes the shadows projected against the walls. Paradigm work of 20th century architecture. The Villa Savoye rises in the center of a property, surrounded by a large grove. In this work, Le Corbusier exposes a set of terms that constitute his formal language, and to a certain extent, the formal language of modern architecture. At Villa Savoye, Le Corbusier exemplifies his ideal of the house as machine habiter, a machine for living. The house is functional like a machine, and beauty derives from that functionality, in such a way that the activities of daily life in it become fundamental to the compositional process. This machine for living synthesizes and encodes the 5 points for a new architecture, on which the Corbusian architectural language is based. A parallelepiped forms the volumetric composition. It rests on a base, and seems to be suspended on a structure of reinforced concrete
Kayaknya perlu
pilatus,
dikasih
arranged
teks
in an
ya. Dia bicara tentang konsep, dan konsep-konsep ini yang kemarin membuat si Aziz menang filosofi. Kenapa kolom diletakkan di situ, itu kemarin yang membuat Aziz bisa menang karena ada filosofinya, dan ini dijelaskan, tapi agak berantakan ya wis lah.
orthogonal grid, and at a continuous distance. a pure, rigid and sober volume that hangs in the air. It seems to be floating. By moving away from the ground, it shows us the triumph of man's geometry over nature. This distancing from the land is clearly reflected by arranging the main spaces of the house on the second level. On the contrary, the service rooms and garages are distributed on the ground floor. A ramp interconnects the different levels of the villa. It is located on the axis of the project and becomes the backbone of it. It shows us a dynamic step and a gradual expansion of the space as it goes up. The path of the ramp culminates in the terrace, where the house, freed from functional commitments, becomes an almost poetic space. The Swiss Foundation has commissioned an enclosure to solve the accommodation problem for Swiss university students. Le Corbusier conceived the solution by organizing the student rooms in a parallelepiped with 4 floors measuring 49 meters by 9 meters, suspended on pilatus and extending along its longitudinal axis to the east-west. The work clearly consists of 2 different volumes. On the one hand, the parallelepiped-shaped pavilion that contains the students' bedrooms, and, on the other, the free form that contains the meeting areas, the set of individual spaces and the social space. The volume of bedrooms is separated from the ground by means of large concrete columns. The Marseille Housing Units project represents the materialization of a vertical housing prototype based on the balance between the individual and the collective. Supported by robust pilatus, the unit takes the form of a horizontal bar 160 meters long, arranged in a north-south direction, in order to achieve greater light efficiency. The building consists of 500 apartments on 17 levels. Every third floor, the architect had an interior corridor in order to distribute the duplex apartments on both sides. Through the apartments whose living room is located to the east, it is accessed through the lower level. Those that are located to the west, it is entered through the upper floor. This cross system allows all homes to have eastern and western facades for the benefit of sunlight, cross ventilation and visuals. Floors 7 and 8 correspond to elevated public streets and house the basic shops to satisfy the needs of the residents. The use of La Modular's red and blue series is evident in the basic dimensions of the cells, both in plan and elevation. The terrace garden of the unit is conceived as an instrument for viewing the surrounding landscape. In addition to this factor, the civic character of the roof is enhanced due to the presence of facilities such as a nursery, a gym, a swimming pool and an open-air theater. The ventilation ducts in the engine rooms represented in imposing concrete blocks subject the visitor to tensions and contemplative pauses. In this domestic project, carried out for Dr. Curichet, the explorations of the 5 points for a new architecture are retaken, which had reached their climax 2 decades earlier, in the Villa Savoye. The house is located on a piece of land between party walls, on a main avenue. The program of the house, which includes the owner's office, is divided into 2 volumes. In the background the doctor's office is allocated, while, in the front part, the service areas, an internal staircase and a patio. Both main bodies are linked by a ramp that connects the ground floor with the mezzanine. In the void between the volumes, there is a tree and a series of slender columns that outline a grid to the limit of the terrain. At street level, public and private space are separated by a fence and an access door, confined between a concrete frame. The outbuildings of the house are arranged on the 3rd level, in a double-height recessed volume, which creates a terrace facing the street, partially sheltered by a trapezoidal roof and deep parasols. Inside the house and the office, the color white predominates, while the doors, niches and carpentry elements have color variations. Relevant work of religious architecture, the Chapel of Ronchamp, was conceived by Le Corbusier for a group of poor Clare nuns who longed to rebuild their pilgrimage center, sitting lonely on a hill overlooking the small French city, and devastated as a result of the bombings of war. The work stands out for the sculptural value of its volumes and the dramatic interior space that it configures. A reinterpretation of the Christian basilica plan is presented. The contours of the nave are deformed and an unusual transept is outlined on one of the flanks, topped by curvilinear chapels. Polychrome stained glass windows are incorporated together with surfaces painted with intense colors. A beam of light filters through a gap between the concrete deck and the walls that apparently support it. The internal, mystical and tenuous atmosphere differs with the predominantly white aspect of the exterior volume, where only the roof contrasts, in the manner of a thick and slightly convex shell. Towards the east there is an open-air altar, sheltered by the cantilevered part of the roof, where a cubic concrete pulpit and a cantilevered choir stand out. To the west, there are two chapels, with their apses facing each other and mediated by a gargoyle that leads the water to a sinuous pool. To the north there is a low wall in the staircase that communicates with the internal choir. To the south, the most iconic image of the project is presented, the wide wall pierced by the stained glass windows and framed on one of its sides by a volume, which evokes the figure of a bell tower. After the division of India and Pakistan, the state of Punjab required a new capital. Le Corbusier projects an urban center, the nucleus of which will house the government district, seat of political power. The district is organized from large masses of buildings connected to each other through compositional axes that structure the open spaces. At one end of the complex stands the Palace of Justice. It consists of a prism with a rectangular plan, where a large reinforced concrete portico is configured. The volume is divided into two blocks, which house the seat of the Supreme Court and a row of 8 courtrooms respectively. 3 large concrete pillars that span the height of the building have the function of separating the 2 blocks. These elements are retracted from the outer panel of the portico, thus creating a canopy, with the aim of reducing the solar incidence on the rooms. On the opposite side of the government district is the Secretariat building. It is an elongated horizontal volume, built entirely in apparent concrete and divided into 6 blocks of 8 floors. It houses various government offices. A pair of sculptural ramps provide vertical circulation through the building levels. The extensive front and rear facades of the building are made up of a series of perforations that house small square windows and are framed by rows of parasols used to mitigate sunlight. The openings are rhythmically modulated, and the massiveness of the facades is reduced. The Palace of the Assembly is the most complex building in the government district. It is a compilation of the plastic experiences of Le Corbusier. The volume is made up of a large rectangular block, to which is attached a hyperbolic paraboloid and an irregular pyramid, corresponding to the legislative chambers. The building is accessed through a gargantuan portico formed by screen pillars that support an imposing concave roof, whose function is to pour the monsoon water into the 2 ponds that frame the entrance. Dominican convent located near Lyon, on a piece of land that slopes gently to the south. The ensemble seems to follow the order and plan originating from the Benedictine rule. The cloister merges with the land on which the cubic and gray building stands, supported by concrete screens as pilatus. The collective program runs on 2 levels, along the eastern, western, and southern sides. The refectory in the western side stands out. On the north flank, and slightly dilated from the rest of the complex, stands the church, in appearance, a hermetic volume of raw concrete, where light effects are used to create a dramatic atmosphere. Through skylights with surfaces internally covered in color, sun rays shoot into the interior, that break into the gloom of the sinuous crypt on the north side and the sacristy. The bell tower is only perceptible from the outside, a concrete frame mounted on 2 trapezoidal screens. The cells destined for the monks are distributed in the last 2 levels of the building and cover 3 sides of it. They are organized in a traditional way, by means of circulations turned over the great cloister, which causes all the rooms to be oriented towards the outside of the complex. Le Corbusier. His architectural work is directly and materially associated with the ideas of the modern movement, whose theories and creations had extraordinary universal significance throughout the 20th century. What do you think of the work of this great and controversial?
Kita pindah ke materi kita ya. Soalnya masih ada beberapa yang penting lagi. Ini waktunya tinggal 15 menit. Ini sketsa. Habis sketsa kayaknya yang ini saya loncatin. Kita langsung ke metaverse. Sekarang udah mulai bisa posting pertanyaan. Atau di grup aja ya, supaya nanti bisa menyusul. Cuma 4 menit.
Le Corbusier dreamed of being a painter, but it was as an architect that he undeniably made his mark. From 1920 to 1960, he helped forge a new architectural language that broke with the past. This World Heritage listing honors not the man, but his outstanding contribution in response to the architectural and urban challenges that fed into the modern movement, which is still the foundation for much 21st century architectural thinking. It does not honor an exemplary achievement at a given moment, but an outstanding body of built and written proposals steadfastly disseminated around the world over half a century. The 17 influential works and sites comprising this transnational serial property are located in Germany, Argentina, Belgium, France, India, Japan, and Le Corbusier's country, Switzerland. In 1924, on a thin plot of land in Corzeux on the shore of Lake Geneva, he built a house for his parents who could no longer afford to employ household staff. Built on a budget, the 64 square meter building is an early expression of the minimalist needs that Le Corbusier would further refine in 1951 with his cabanon in Roquebrune Cap Martin. With its 11-meter wide window, open plan and roof terrace, the Petite Villa au bord du Léman prefigures that most iconic building of the modern movement, the Villa Savoy. In 1930 in Geneva, Le Corbusier set out to design an apartment building for the middle classes. His close collaboration with Edmond Warner, a locksmith and metal craftsman, resulted in a number of design innovations. Load-bearing metal pillars to free up the facades for windows to let in a maximum of natural light. The Clarté building. A demonstration of Le Corbusier's ability to rethink building methods to meet the social and human needs of modern man. It was in Marseille that his theory of a machine for living in was scaled up in a major housing project in the form of the Unité d'Habitation, the Radiant City. The 17 sites of the serial property are spread over 3 continents, reflecting the internationalization of Le Corbusier's architectural practices and his global influence. Considered as a whole, they illustrate 4 core characteristics of the modern movement. They sparked tremendous debate, ushered in a new architectural language, revolutionized building techniques, and responded to the social and human needs of the modern era.
Jadi dimulai dari sketsa-sketsa sederhana Le Corbusier itu. Sekarang kamu sudah, pokoknya lagi bikin sketsa TA langsung bayangkan kamu sedang menuju Le Corbusier. Ini yang 2 saya loncatin dulu. Waktunya karena tinggal 9 menit. Nanti kalau hasil ada waktu balik ke atas. Sekarang udah mulai bisa nyusun pertanyaan ya. Karena materi yang Le Corbusier-nya yang apa yang sudah dilakukan beliau dan bisa kita serap atau kita kritisi sudah selesai. Yang sekarang ini betul-betul futuristik yang kemarin saya share tadi ya. Bagaimana sih mempelajari arsitektur dengan cara metaverse. Suara saya cukup jelas ya. Kalian pertanyaannya di anu aja. Taruh di grup ya. Saya buat satu form. Saya siapkan satu nama pertanyaan. Ditunggu sampai jam, ini jam berapa? 10 ya, sampai jam 12. Jam 16 untuk ya. Jadi kalian jawab di dalam form saya ya supaya saya nggak bingung cari pencelat-mencelat. Oke, sekarang kita mulai metaverse.
A virtual world where
Kok ini harus pakai teks
where
ini?
people would use digital
Karena dia bicara tentang wah ini 16 menit. Ya sudah kalau nanti kalian belum selesai mau ditinggal nggak apa-apa. Apa sih ini? Kenapa dia jadi begini ya? Kenapa dia jadi begini ya? Okay. 16 menit. Jadi kalau kalian sudah habis perkuliahannya mau pindah kuliah lain boleh langsung keluar.
avatars to live, work, and play online. He called it the metaverse.
This piece of land with Snoop Dogg's face on it is owned by the rapper. He's building a virtual mansion on it.
Metaverse is catching on and the people are going crazy for it. But one of the biggest impacts of it is that it is changing and shifting industries. From of course gaming and entertainment to tourism to workspaces and even architecture. I had made a whole video about how architecture will change with the onset of the metaverse. But the truth is, it has been evolving for quite some time.
Companies like Meta, aka Facebook, are betting billions of dollars on the hope that virtual reality is the future of human interaction.
The technologies that make up the metaverse, mainly VR, AR, MR, and XR, have been here for quite some time. It is only recently that they've got this makeover and have come under the umbrella term of the metaverse. And suddenly, so many people have joined the bandwagon. Today in this video, we are exploring architects who've already taken steps towards a metaverse before it became a mainstream thing. We are going to be looking at 3 stories where the underlying technologies of the metaverse have been used to change how we design, construct, and perceive architecture. Welcome to Blessed Arc, and today on this video, we are talking about the architects of the metaverse. When I say the word metaverse, what might come to your head is this digital animated world full of saturated colors, interactive things, and flying advertisements. Basically, people think the metaverse will be a completely virtual reality that can be experienced by different gadgets. This is exactly the kind of metaverse that people over at companies like Facebook are trying to create.
These companies just decided to move us all into the metaverse like they're putting their grandma into a nursing home. Sorry, Nana, you have to live in the computer now.
But the thing is, this world of Facebook will most probably be very close to our reality. Basically, it might look like a combination of the world you already live in with Instagram. It might feel exciting because of its underlying technology, but maybe not so much in its design. And the reason for that might just be that architects are not at the core of this new world building. But what if they were? What if architects could create a digital world where achieving the impossible might just be any other day?
But I definitely think that moving forward, metaverse as a whole, there's so many other possibilities within what we can do with this space. How can that be scripted or coded into what we want to do in it?
This is Mateusz Tenkachi. He's the co-founder of the design firm Sunken Blim, and he has created this virtual stage, a VR space where people from all over the world can come together, connect, and share ideas.
So the stage would be this virtual space where we can come together, host conversations, presentations, and start experimenting on how to actually engage with a group of people in virtual reality, which is a conversation that's been going on for a while, and how to present, right? Even presenting projects like we present on architecture and do reviews and all of that. How do you do that in a virtual space where the rules of physics and how things can actually operate can be completely different?
So yes, the idea of meeting virtually is not novel, but as we move towards a virtual reality for all, the design of this new world does matter. Similar to how the design of the built environment around you matters.
From a design standpoint, it's one single surface that bands around and makes the audience and makes the stage and makes the covering, makes the floors. And there's no really like a difference between what's stage, what's floor, what's audience. Everything flows together. So it gives at least the feeling that, you can walk up the stage at any point. Presenters and audience have the same role in this. So that is what we started from.
And this vision of his is not just limited to this one stage. This, as he says, is version 1.
Different than an architectural project building a physical building, you get people's experience when the job is done. And then, you can take that as information and move on and the knowledge for the next project. But now, in something like this, you can take the feedback and keep updating and reiterating the project because, it's a different approach. It's an ongoing, space creation in a way.
What's fascinating is that at the center of this stage, the main crux of it is design. He constantly works on improving and changing his versions, updating them to fit the needs of the users.
The question of even accessibility in design, right? In physical life, right? In the physical world, we have accessibility in terms of people with disabilities. So let's say wheelchairs, that's the classic example, right? Buildings have to have access for those who cannot, climb up the stairs. However, in the metaverse or virtual spaces, a wheelchair, for example, is not a problem. Right? You could have a staircase. However, there's other types of accessibility issues that should be taken into consideration. And right now, it's not really the main point of conversation in virtual spaces. However, some people are more, sensitive to strobe lights, having seizures with strobe lights. And then some materials or some virtual spaces that have lights flashing or materials flickering, that could cause problems. And what we're talking about here is that this virtual spaces could know who you are based on your profile. And that space could be different for you based on your, requirements or preferences. So maybe disability is not designing a space that serves all, but designing a system that can modify depending on what you need.
At the end of the day, the profession of architecture is about solving problems through design. In a virtual world, the problems will be different, and so will the solutions. So even in this world of endless possibilities, you still have restrictions just like the physical world. And hopefully, as we move towards a better and better virtual reality, we'll have more and more architects get more creative with their creations. But after seeing this project, the design stage, and hearing all the news about this metaverse, a new question comes to mind. Will the new world order be completely virtual? Now hey, before we move ahead, I actually wanted to talk to you about the sponsors of today's video, 1:X. Now 1:X is a platform that can give you the digital skills that one requires to be an architect. They have an array of courses that can teach you different skill sets for your career. One of these is their BIM course. Now, BIM is to the architecture industry what Metaverse is to the tech industry. With 1:2X's BIM course, you can learn from industry professionals working in top firms and also get to work on a live project. And the best part is after you're done, they give you placement support as well. So if you want to take your career to the next level, do check out 1:2X. You can find their links in the description. And now, let's get back to our video.
This is it. I'm going into the Ultranet to save my daughter.
Just like we spend hours and hours in a day on our phones and computers, will we also do it in the new virtual realm? And will more and more architects start gravitating towards building these new and fantastic forms? Will the profession start getting dominated by the so-called virtual architects? Well, some people think not. For one, the technologies that will make it immersive and more easily accessible are a few years away.
But Cambria will be a completely new, advanced, and high-end product, and it'll be at the higher end of the price spectrum too.
But there are also people who see this metaverse as something very different. They do not see it as a completely new world that you just escape to. They actually see it as a new layer of reality that can be added over the existing one. Imagine architecture that blends with technology to create immersive solutions. For example, what if me, a client, could completely experience what my new space will look like instead of just seeing a few renders on a computer screen? Well, this is exactly what a firm in India tried to do for their clients. This is ARPM Design and Research from Gurgaon, India. Their experiment with the underlying technologies of the metaverse actually happened out of necessity.
आज रात 12 बजे से संपूर्ण देश में संपूर्ण लॉकडाउन होने जा रहा है.
India has become the latest and largest country to introduce a nationwide lockdown in the fight against the coronavirus.
Now the world changed in the year 2020 and the field of architecture was affected as well. For these guys, the problem with their latest project is that they could not travel to the site and had only seen it once. As a designer, we tend to spend time at sites, brainstorm ideas, get the feel of the entire space before we can redesign it. But since going to the site was not physically possible, they brought the site to them.
We worked entirely remotely, and for that, to aid that process we started using AR. It was first easier to actually feel the space ourselves as architects, walk around the space and actually get a feel for how large the corridor width is, how large the doors are, what the sizes of different windows and openings are. And once we got a feel for the space, we were able to then better design for it.
And also, in the same way that they brought the site to them, they got the final design to the clients.
Doing the usual architectural visualization step and kind of rendering out images and walkthrough videos and stuff like that, we instead took this model into AR again, the final design output that we came up with, and allowed the client to actually walk through the site as if they were walking through the final design. They were able to walk around and understand what the final site would feel like rather than just look like.
One of the reasons I wanted to bring this story to you is to tell you that the technology behind it is not years away. It is here now and it's slowly catching on. So the metaverse might not just mean futuristic and fantastic forms. It might mean new ways of looking at and aiding processes that architects take part in right now. There are loads of companies who've started giving virtual immersive tours to their clients of their future designs or real estate projects. And as we move ahead in the next decade, this is going to become more mainstream all over the world. But can this go beyond just the designing stage? There was this one professor back in architecture school, and he used to say, architecture is not just about designing beautiful buildings, it is also about constructing them. Details, he used to say, details are important. So when we talk about the metaverse, will it just remain till the design stage, building these fantastic forms and viewing them? Or can it actually become an active part of the construction process? Well, turns out it can. This is the use of digital reality to aid in the construction of our real world. And the company behind this is Hologram. I actually sat down with the founders to understand more of what they do.
So Hologram is a tool for building mixed reality applications in Rhino and Grasshopper, which lets you skip the learning curve of game engines like Unity for building simple AR apps. We made Hologram mostly so that creatives like architects, engineers, artists, students that make things could get stuck into building all of the kind of crazy ideas that they had for mixed reality without needing to go learn to code and things like that.
I wanted to go deeper into their work to understand how their technology is helping the construction sector. We talked about one of their recent projects, the Hobart Hospital development.
Anyone working with 3D models can use Hologram to build in augmented reality. This includes bricklayers such as Colin from Old Brick, who are now comfortable in using it in their challenging day-to-day projects.
Basically, with the main thing around the Hobart Hospital was the complexity of the layout of these brick benches. So as a sort of 15-story tower, they had to build these brick benches over multiple levels, and the traditional way to lay that out is extremely complex because you basically have all these curved arches that need to connect. And so the traditional way to do it, you basically you use a holotime lane setting up, and then you have one bricklayer that starts, I guess, at the head of the snake and then proceeds to go along, and in a very trial and error fashion connect the bricks together, because obviously with a curve there's a whole lot of different cutted bricks they need to do, and it really is a case where it's one bricklayer with a couple of apprentices that is chopping up bricks, and he's just trying to put the jigsaw together. Where Hologram completely changed the game for that is that we provided not only the cut-in patterns that they had to see, so they could see what bricks they needed to cut, and so they could prepare those in advance or concurrently when that's going on and bring in those bricks up. And so it's literally like, all right, here's the J bricks here or here's the K bricks for the bricklayer. They could pick it up, and then with the headset they could see exactly where that brick needed to be placed.
A simple interface allows the bricklayers to view each course they're on and what cut brick types are required in that moment.
So basically they were able to guide the bricklayers to create complex geometries in a simple and easy manner. The word democratizing complexity is what came to my mind when we were chatting. So metaverse as a whole might be a few years away, and we will see what it can truly do. But clearly the technologies that the metaverse is relying on are here now, and they are helping drive and evolve the profession of architecture. Whether it is creating a completely new immersive world, changing the design process, or becoming a part of the construction, the future of the metaverse is bound and limited only by people's capabilities and their imaginations. I, for one, am excited to see these new worlds or see the change in our existing one. And I'm glad that people driving these are architects, or should we call them architects of the metaverse.
Oke, itu adalah masa depan kalian. Mungkin saya udah nggak ada atau gimana, tapi arsitek metaverse itu harus sudah kalian pikirkan. Oke, saya akhiri kuliahnya. Yang mau ikut diseleksi pertanyaannya silahkan. Kuliahnya saya akhiri. Sampai ketemu 2 minggu lagi.